Hello, you're watching Studio Ken. Make sure you don't miss any episode of Studio Ken by subscribing to the YouTube channel. To subscribe, search for Studio Ken on YouTube, click subscribe on the bottom right of your screen, and set a reminder. You can also watch Studio Ken on Diamond TV on Wednesday at 18:30 and on Saturday at 19 hours. Studio Ken, the home of Kennedy Gondwe on YouTube.
Parenting can be stressful at the best of times, and taking care of a child with special needs is often more so, especially when the child has a medical condition that most people do not understand. So spare a thought for my guests on Studio Ken this week. This is Leonard, or LJ. He's 6 years old and he suffers from autism. Len and his wife Mainza are the two parents with the responsibility of raising little LJ there. Thank you very much, Len and Mainza, for hosting us.
Thank you for having us on your show.
Obviously, this is not an area or a story that most parents would want to share, so we are very grateful that you agreed to be on Studio Ken. First things first, your child suffers from autism. That's not a word that most Zambians are used to, let alone the condition. So when people ask you what your child suffers from, what exactly do you tell them?
Should I take it?
Listen, I think where we started from was autism, but we drilled down to something a bit more specific, which is a sensory processing disorder. So it's something that obviously people have rarely heard about. So we have to explain that I think the way society is built. People don't generally prod because it's an uncomfortable topic for them. So when you just tell them, no, it's got a sensory processing disorder, they'll leave it. They want to ask what exactly does it mean. But yeah, for us, it's something that is normal.
So what exactly does it mean? Because most people don't understand what exactly your son suffers from.
So I think I can pick it up. Yeah. Like he said, when LJ was about 1 year 7, we noticed that he had a lot of odd behaviors about him. And I think that's pretty much the time where we knew that there was need to begin to look into what it could be. And so back to him not really having been diagnosed as a child with autism, it stems from having observed him over the years, see him achieve some milestones, some developmental milestones that is, which essentially after evaluations, after thorough assessments, we were told by specialists and a medical doctor that it cannot be autism because of the strides that he has made.
Wee-wee.
You want to wee-wee? Okay, go on wee-wee, Papa. Okay, go on wee-wee. Let me put you down for a sec. Yeah, so you're either autistic or you're on the autism spectrum or you're not on the spectrum at all. So at the time, there wasn't the tools to diagnose a child with autism in Zambia. So what we had was just a series of tests, a series of evaluations where you're kind of eliminating possibilities or conditions that, fall on the spectrum. And as we went along, some things began to be eliminated, even though initially he had a lot of red flags that linked him to autism. So then now we're dealing with the spectrum because we've been told it's not autism, but it's linked to the autism spectrum. So we're at a point now where we know that the tools are there and we need to go back now and get a full test done to see where we're at. And then once we have that test, it's what's going to determine what the qualifying factor is for him to be on the spectrum, which is where now we'll be able to talk about, is it mild, is it moderate, is it severe, and is it high functioning? So at this point, we know that we're dealing with sensory processing disorder, meaning the way his neurological system receives input from his environment through the senses is not always interpreted in a way where he's able to give that input corresponding action. And I guess it's in the name, it's in the title, sensory processing disorder.
So make me understand, what is the difference between autism, generally speaking, and the spectrum that is on?
Okay, I think we need to get rid of these kids for a second. Kennedy will be right back because this will not work.
Fine. Okay.
Okay, we leave LJ.
Hi, this is Enoch Mepu. You're watching Studio Ken. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.
Before the kids went out, I was asking you what the difference is between autism and the specific spectrum that is on.
Okay.
What is the difference?
So, Kennedy, first things first, we're not experts on autism. And I think that's the misconception, that because you've got a child that has a condition, you kind of are an expert in the area. It's just obviously as a parent, you want to gather as much information as you can to best help your child. So I know that autism is a standalone condition. And on the spectrum, there's very different conditions that interlink into the spectrum, like sensory processing disorder. It could be any other neurological condition or intellectual disability. It falls onto that spectrum. So in his case, from the research that we've done and from speaking to some specialists, there's actually a push for sensory processing disorder to also be a standalone disease, in that while there are some elements that may interlink with autism spectrum, it actually should stand alone, because a child can have sensory processing disorder and not be autistic, despite exhibiting some of the red flags that could be on the spectrum. So that's about as far as I know, and I hope that helps. It's very complex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Len, when you discovered that your boy had that condition, were there any why-us moments? How did you react?
I think when we discovered it, I had to be strong for the both of us. There was a why-us moment. From the mother, usually I guess it's nature. You know, she felt like she didn't understand how. Why would one twin be like this and the other twin? As we spoke off camera, he is a twin. This twin was sitting next to me here. So for me, I did not have the time to feel sorry. It was really just, there has to be a solution. You know, he didn't seem way off until we were alerted by his teachers, actually, at his first school.
Yeah.
They asked us if we'd noticed that he doesn't look directly in your eyes. He usually would look from side to side, which we didn't really pay attention to. So it's only then did we start looking into it, researching. For me, it was just there will be a solution. We will find a solution. You know. So for the longest time, I had to be strong. She's the stronger one, really. But in that moment, she needed someone to be there for her. You know. So yeah, I still see it as, I refuse to see it as a negative. You know, I don't think God would have given us the responsibility of the child if He didn't believe it's something we could handle and deal with. So for us, yeah, we still believe that he's getting better and he'll continue to get better. And I think that's where the sensory processing disorder comes in. Autistic children usually regress as they grow older. Some of the things he was doing, like he could speak some words and the like, that's progressive. So that's when they started saying, okay, no, I think we need to do a more thorough test, which we're about to do for him now. Yeah. Which should help us, you know, even more.
And Mainza, how was it like for you?
At the time, we were just
Yes, at the time, I mean, it's quite strange that you can have twins, and one of them has got a condition that the other hasn't got.
So it was very difficult, and I think no parent, you know, when you're carrying your pregnancy, you know, imagines that there could be something wrong, you know, and I use that term very loosely because I'm not in any way trying to indicate that something is wrong with him. Yes, there's a condition, we can't be in denial of that, but I think nothing could have prepared me for the gravity of the conversation we had when the school called us and said, we're not saying that it is, but we've seen, you know, these traits, these behaviors before in children, because obviously as a nursery, they deal with a lot of children, and they encouraged us to try and look into it and see that it could be or could not be autism. He had said that we didn't really notice some things. I did as a mother, Kennedy. There was always something that felt off, but I just couldn't voice it because I felt like if I begin to speak to him about it, I'm giving it life and I'm giving it a name. And again, being the believer that I am, it feels like just pray about it, pray it away, you know, he'll grow out of it. But eventually you begin to realize that the situation is not changing. The condition seems to be going from bad to worse. And after the conversation with his school, we sat down now really began to just open it up and just talk, and begin to express some of the things that I had stuffed on the inside. And so once you come to that place, and then there's the reading up on Google, which is not always advisable because sometimes it's worst case scenario. It didn't help, So you begin to see the picture, the future you had in mind for him somehow slip away, and it feels like it's a grieving process. You have to pretty much mourn the loss of the child that you thought he would be, the dreams, the hopes, the aspirations that you had. But then over time begin to realize that, listen, this is a unique boy. There's something very peculiar, very different about him, and he's a joy. It's not a loss for us at all.
How important was communication at that point between the two of you? Because so many thoughts could have crossed your mind. Did you at any point interrogate God and say, God, why us?
Absolutely, especially in my own quiet time. I was angry, and I felt like it's too much, And I say this with your permission. We had suffered a loss of multiple babies before any of the boys came along. So you lose triplets, and then you have one child, Christiana first. Then we had the twins, So it felt like, oh, this is restoration for us. And then you go from that to, okay, there's a problem here. So I'm like, Lord, why can't this just be easy, Why do we always have to go through difficult things? But at the end of the day, you begin to understand, obviously, through building your faith, because faith is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more it strengthens, and faith is tested through trials. It becomes stronger through trials. So through that, and through obviously a lot of communication between me and him, and just being in a place where you're both on the same page, there was never a blame game, there was always support from his end. But my worry was, he's being strong for me. Who is he talking to, And generally men don't tend to open up about such things. So I was also secretly worried for him. Like, we talk to each other, but I also need him to talk to somebody else. As mothers, it's easier to connect and talk about issues. So it took a lot. It was not a walk in the park, and it takes time. It takes time.
Len, your wife talks about her being worried about who you were talking to.
Yeah.
Who were you talking to at that point, and what were people telling you?
I think primarily I spoke to my cousin, brother. He's the one I go to when it's when it's deep family issues. But it wasn't really it was more like, can you imagine this is the situation? I would explain like how it is at home. In my head, I genuinely from the beginning, I just felt we will find a way through it. So I was not feeling very aggrieved. I just felt that it's a challenge given to us, that there has to be a reason for it. I try to be logical most of the time, and so for me, there has to be a reason why we were given LJ. He's the healthiest kid we have. He rarely gets sick.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for me, I still believe there is a way around this. We'll find a way. It's just that in Zambia, we have challenges. Access to facilities, access to the right medical attention, the doctors, the costs, So I was just thinking around those areas. Okay, gotta work hard, gotta make more money in case we have to do A, B, C, D.
Were there any moments where you'd break down, cry, asking yourself questions?
And I don't want to come off macho, but no. I was too focused on getting it, finding a way around it.
How about you, Mainza?
Oh, I broke down all the time, Kennedy, all the time. I think for me, it's important to just let the emotions run their course. If I have to give myself a bit of a process to just deal with the emotions, deal with the blows of, every obstacle that you run into, because there are a lot, I mean, we're at this place now, but before we got here, it really did get worse before it got better.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. I mean, we've gone through a process where he had to sleep using sleep medication. He could not sleep on his own. We've gone through a process where it might be too much information, but it's our reality. he would soil his diaper before he was potty trained and would find that he's smeared it all over walls, you know. We got to a point where we didn't even know if he could ever potty train. You heard him say, wee wee, wee wee. It's something that we didn't imagine could even happen. So we've gone through a whole lot of challenges.
It's small things.
We've had to fish him out of swimming pools because he could not grasp the concept that this water can drown me, or I can drown in the water rather and die. So he loves water so much that he would see swimming pools and run straight for it. And you literally have to dive in and fish him out. So it's been a lot. So for me, absolutely all the time, I broke down at every juncture. I needed to break down and talk about it. And I think it brought healing for me. It did.
From what you described to me, what would you say was the hardest part in the journey that you've been through? Or what has been the hardest part?
Acceptance. Just accepting that we are dealing with something to which there's no cure. Dealing with the fact that at some point you were told that you will never be able to have a conversation with your son, you know. It's wanting the best for him and being in a place where he's got two parents that love him fiercely and they're doing everything that they can, you know, to give him a better outcome. But I think the hardest thing for me has been, I'd never want him to be in a world without us, until God comes through and, you know, gets him to a point where he's able to just fend for himself, be his own man, be his own person. So again, I think trying to take everything in with just one glance is what tends to throw me off balance, trying to see ahead. For me, it's just a day at a time, a step at a time, a year at a time, you know. Any progress is good progress. Any victory, no matter how small, is a great victory for us where LJ is concerned.
So does he talk at all?
Oh yeah.
He speaks, and strangely, listen, he's got limited vocabulary, that's for sure, but he can communicate.
Yeah.
For us, like I said, it's what seems small to, obviously we've got 3 other boys, what may seem small to people are big things to us. You know, like she says, he can go to the toilet on his own. You know, he can wash his hands, do everything. You know,
Brush his teeth, he can bath himself, he can dress up, he can fix his own juice, he can get his own water. When he's hungry, he'll tell you, or you'll just see him fumbling around the kitchen. And you hear
dressing up might be seen as, dressing up, I mean. But at the beginning, I mean, he knows this is right, left, front, back. You know, at the beginning, it just couldn't happen. You know, he can't, he can't dress himself up. So when you see him dressing himself up, it's such a big achievement. You know, it's big progress for us. So, yeah, it's the small thing. What seems small are big things for, and we thank God for that. That's for sure. You know.
And just a bit more context as well. Sorry to cut in. Like he said, what might seem normal for an ordinary child, you know, I mean, these are the challenges that are on the spectrum or related to autism, where you find that the fine motor skills are affected. So even just holding a pen doesn't come easily, you know, to a child that could be living with autism, or zipping the pants or zipping up his pants. He might not have that fine motor ability. So the small things really are the big things for us.
And Len, how big a battle is it for you to adapt to the different needs of your child, given what you are explaining?
I think, to be honest, we've leaned on each other a lot. You know, yes, while I've not been crazy emotional in terms of breaking down and the like, I've looked to the mother to do quite a lot of heavy lifting, you know, in terms of some of the disciplining, you know, you know, trying to manage him. When he used to have super tantrums, calming him down should be the one who would manage that. Those parts for me, yeah, those were the difficult moments for me. You know, where he is just screaming. Is, you know, it's so this happening now. These are the miracles we keep talking about. He could not sit in one place for 30 seconds. You know, when we took him to the first school, the special school, he would just run out of class, in and out, in and out. You know, so yeah, those were difficult moments when we had to give him sleeping medicine. I mean, I hate using meds on kids unless necessary. Those meds are what were given to adults.
Yeah.
You know, so
And still wouldn't be able to knock him
and
out.
still midnight is up, 01 is up. You know, so those were the difficult times. You know, so now when you tell him, okay, bedtime, he goes with his brothers. They run around for 5 minutes. When the lights are off, he shuts down. It's just like, you can even go to bed. Kennedy, we couldn't go to bed. Any sound, you're just hearing out for him and the like. So,
That is it.
How about financially? How much of a financial burden has this condition brought to you as a couple?
well, I can tell you for sure, it's not easy because there's been some sacrifices that have had to be made, and some of the difficult moments for me have been when we can't give him more than we'd like to give him more. He needs quite a bit of different therapies. So sometimes that's a challenge.
So like occupational therapy is available, but the cost of that would be anywhere from 250 to about 500 kwacha a session. And then speech therapy, also the same thing. And then you kind of need to combine them, you know, to have maximum effect or impact on him.
And how often do you need to do that?
Three times, 4 times a week. You know, and we know things can get tricky. So now we're talking about in excess of 2,000-3,000 a week, just specifically on his therapies. That's excluding his school.
His school.
And of course, we've got a reasonably big family.
Yeah.
You know, the other boys have got needs, so all the kids need to be looked after.
Do you sometimes get upset when people look at your boy and say he's strange and weird?
No, I understand that people make those statements out of ignorance. It's purely just out of ignorance. So.
And how about you, Len?
I think for me it's one incident, and probably I've never told my wife. We were out somewhere, one of the malls, and they were in the play park with the brothers, with other kids. And I'd gone there to check on them, and the minder, the guy who was working there, the way I found him treating him was so harsh. You know, to them they just say, that's the
Meaning
mistake
he's
people
not.
make. He doesn't listen. But they don't understand that he's not the same like everybody
I'm
else.
glad you didn't tell me. Because I'd have gone back there.
That's exactly what I did tell her.
I guess.
You know, but again, I think like Mainza says, it's the ignorance. You know, we've actually tried to help some people where they just say, you know what, my child doesn't listen. They don't understand that actually it's a condition. And if it's something that we've talked about is, and she mentioned it some time back to me, how do you discipline a child for something they don't understand they've done wrong? You know, so these kids, we can't explain to the whole world, wherever you go, oh no, he's different, he's different.
Yeah.
We just sometimes stick on our table if we have to go for a lunch. We sit, we eat our lunch. We try to do normal family things, you know, because you can end up hiding in your cocoon because you're scared of exposing your child out there. But you can't live like that. He needs to be around normal environments. So that's what we end up doing. So for me, I don't get embarrassed. I don't feel anything remotely of that nature.
But parents with children that have got autism sometimes feel depressed, confused, angry. How often do you feel that way?
At this point, not at all.
It's past for us. It's past for
Yeah.
us. We feel our hardest parts, our hardest moments are behind us.
Yeah.
It's been good progress for us, to be honest.
Not that, you know, we want a different child or, you know, we wish that he could be normal like everybody else. Absolutely not. I think he's a gift that keeps on giving to us, you know. He's a gift that we're still unwrapping and we're still learning so much about him, but not just about him, but even about ourselves. I think there's so much that he's taught us, you know, about being a parent, about being selfless. You know, it's easy to love something that seems perfect, you know, or doesn't really give you problems, and not that he's giving us problems, but just trying to give you context. But when you find yourself in a situation where it is what it is, you deal with it, you know, you get attuned to it, you know, you give it all you've got. And there's no turning back for us as parents, you know.
Has he in any way affected your marriage? People usually, couples would blame each other. Maybe it's from your family.
Yeah. No.
How has your marriage played out? Has it brought you closer?
I think it's definitely been more of working together towards helping him. So I think it's more getting closer than anything else. You know, I think African tradition, a lot of blame game. It's the wife. How did she carry? You know, we know there's all this. Misconceptions.
Conspiracies.
Yeah, you know, it's nothing like that.
Even old wives' tales.
Old wife. It's not the parents' fault. You know, up to now, the best scientists can't figure out how this happens, what causes it.
Yeah.
You know, well, how can one? A best example: same day, born within the same 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How can twins be so different? You know, how can one be exhibiting autistic tendencies while the other is just as normal? You know, so, and you touched about, because I didn't answer my part of the envious. Credit for me, the biggest issue, I don't know how to put it correctly, but it comes to family holidays. I think we have limited ourselves quite a few times in terms of where we can go because it has to be LJ friendly.
Yeah.
You know, so we're almost limited to just going back to the same places where we know he's safe, we can leave him, you know, but we can't do as much as we'd like. You know, flying is one thing we're actually terrified of doing because he does get, we don't know what pressure will do to him if he's in the plane. You know, can he sit for 2 hours, 5 hours? You know, so those are the things which for me, I hope with time we can start doing. Like I said, he sat here for 10 minutes or so before he could even sit for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm hoping with time that we can be able to do more as a family and not limit some of the things we'd like to do together.
What do his siblings think about him? How do they react, especially the twin brother?
So they honestly think he's strange, and they think he's naughty, and they think that sometimes he does things, you know, spitefully. Case in point, one of them has a tablet which LJ, when having a meltdown, just picks up and smashes. And he's been very careful, you know, to look after it and protect it. And in that moment, how do you explain to another child that he didn't mean to break your gadget, or he didn't mean to do this, you know? It's difficult enough, Kennedy, trying to explain it to you, you know, what the spectrum is all about. We're still understanding it ourselves. Now, how much more trying to make fellow children understand that, look, your brother is different, you know, in this way, you know, he doesn't process things the way you do. His brain doesn't process information the way yours does. Those are very difficult topics to have with children. But one thing that we've had to do is just make them understand that he's different. At least that's age appropriate for them. As they get older, we'll begin to give them a bit more detail, a bit more understanding of what it is that LJ deals with. But outside of that, I mean, they love him. You know, they play together, they've gelled well together. And of course, they're boys, so fights will break out. And LJ knows how to hold his own. There's times they gang up on him, but there's days where he'll literally thump all of them on his own. Okay. And they'll scamper and, oh, LJ's beaten us. I'm like, good, because you pick on him. So I'm glad that he's hit you back today.
Yeah. I'm glad we are smiling and laughing about this. Other than what you paint to me, there are obviously joyful moments that he brings into your life.
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
The latest ones we had, and it was so accidental. The kids were swimming, and he's got this tendency of diving into the deep end. So we always have to have somebody there. So she was filming the kids swimming, and the smallest one was in there. So she was trying to capture the young one in the pool, not realizing that in the main pool, the deep side, someone is swimming, and she just took it for granted it was the eldest boy, CJ. And when we looked again, we realized that he's actually self-taught himself
How to swim.
how to swim. And that, for me, is just like, wow. You know, this kid, we tried to take him for swimming lessons. He used to just be everywhere.
And the reason for that was because our fear was one day he'll drown. So we thought maybe let's try and get him to learn how to swim. you know.
And
but
the age, just to see him swim on his, I was just, and swimming properly, not this.
I don't even know how to swim myself.
You know, so things like that is just like wow, you know.
Yeah.
It's from things to the smallest things.
For me, Kennedy, just getting a hug from LJ, like earlier on, he did not want to be touched, probably because he didn't like what touch felt like. So he was very averse to hugs, any type of physical contact. And as a mother, you just want to pick your kids and smother them and hug them and, you know, just love on them. So to be in a place where he'll just come willingly, give hugs, you know, kiss you, he loves to brush my hair, just that interaction. Those are moments for me that I cannot place a value on, like they're priceless, you know, right down to sometimes where you think that he is not like understanding some things, or he doesn't have a grasp of certain things, but those times where he'll just come and you're sitting and he'll be like, give me back my phone, a whole sentence, and you're like, where did that come from, you know? Can I have some juice, please? So he has these random moments where he'll literally give you a whole sentence and you have no idea where he pulled it out of. Like, what is going on in your database? How much have you actually stored up that we're not even aware of? And hence me saying he's like this gift that we're still unraveling. There's so many dimensions to him that, you know, we're still unearthing.
Many parents would rather keep such stories to themselves without sharing them with the public. Why have you guys been willing to share with me and even your Facebook page this kind of a story?
Because we love our son unconditionally. We absolutely love him. We're driven by love. We are not trying to hide him. We're not ashamed of him, you know. And I think to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of other parents and think that there's parents out there that might be having a challenge with embracing their child, for us is more reason to even speak out on it and say that, look, if we're able to do this, you can do this too, you know. And it's just also like him alluding to how somebody upset him, you know, about how they referred to our son. There's not that much sensitivity where this topic is concerned. People don't know how to behave, not just towards the kids, but even to you as parents, you know. So it's speaking out to make people understand that LJ is part of our family and he's part of the package. If you invite our kids over to your kids' party, LJ is coming along, you know. We might send him, we'll obviously send help, you know, for him, but you either take us with him or you don't take us at all because he's part of our unit. So it's also just trying to break all these misconceptions, these negative connotations about what it is, you know, to have a child that, you know, has special needs. And we speak out for that reason, that we can't be in a world where something has happened to you that you could not have prepared yourself for in any way. And it's a condition, you know, it's a disease just like any other disease, you know, but if there's acceptance for that, why not for this?
Len?
We're not here to gloss over the difficulties of raising a special needs child. It's emotionally taxing, it's financially taxing, you know, I mean, we've had to adjust a lot of things, but I think it's just important to know that it's not the end. You know, I mean, we've just touched on some of the joys of LJ has brought to our lives. You know, they're not special needs in a negative way. They've got special abilities as well. You know, we have to treat these kids, give them every opportunity possible, so they can grow up into something, independent people. You know, so that's what we are hoping to send out there, that it is possible. Progress can be made.
Thank you very much for hosting us, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, this is Enoch Mepo. You're watching Studio Ken. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.